My name is Seimovich, and I am with Focusrite. I'm going to talk about the Saffire, the first Saffire unit in the Saffire range, which is this unit right here. The Saffire is a firewire 400 interface. You have 4 ins and 10 outs. You have 2 analog inputs that you can record at the same time, and then SPDIF left and right. And then you have 8 analog balanced TRS outputs on the back and SPDIF left and right. You have DSP plugins on the Saffire. You have a Focusrite compressor, EQ, amp modeling, and reverb. These are all processed within the hardware, so it takes the CPU load off your computer. And you get those same plugins as VST and audio units that you can use later on in your host application. Just to take a look at the front of the Saffire, where you see your 2 inputs, that's input 1 and then input 2. You have a line mode switch, which switches in between line and instrument, which will switch the impedance as well as the gain. So you have that control on both input 1 and input 2. Next to that is the gain knob for each input. And then you have a 3-color LED next to that. And then down here you have the MIDI section, because the Saffire is also a MIDI interface. You have MIDI in and MIDI out, and that will turn that on. Next to that you have a monitor knob, which allows you to select which output you want to control with the hardware monitor knob. I will show you that later on in the Saffire control. You also have a dim switch and a mute button. The dim switch will dim 40 dB on all the outputs on the back, but it will not dim anything on the front. The same goes with the mute button. It will mute only the outputs on the front, but not the headphone outputs on the front. Just below that, you have your individual gain controls for your headphone mixes on the front, where you have 2 independent ones, 1 and 2. Below there, you have your line inputs. 1 and 2, your Focusrite preamps on the back, taken out of the green series, so really nice preamps. And then you have 48 phantom power switch right there, which will turn on the phantom power for both preamps. I'm just going to turn it around so we can look at the back of the Saffire. There's your analog TRS outputs, all balanced, of course. And then you have, for a power supply, you plug it in there. You have SPDIF in and out, and there's your MIDI in and out, and then you have 2 firewire ports. So if you want to hook up your external hard drive, you can plug it in straight into the Saffire. So that's pretty much the hardware for you, and I just wanted to show you the software GUI that comes with the Saffire, which is called Saffire Control and looks like that. So let's take a look at the Saffire Control. Saffire Control allows you to do several things. You can set up headphone mixes, and you can also have control over your DSP plugins. Now, analog input 1, you will see the dry signal right there. And in input 2, you will see the dry signal there. You have processed and direct. Process will show you the wet signal whenever you add any of the plugins. So you will see 1 there and 2 there. Direct will show you the level of either SPDIF if the SPDIF button is enabled. If the SPDIF button is disabled, a backup track will be recorded automatically. 1 will be recorded to 3, and 2 will be recorded to 4. So 1 will be recorded to 3, and then 2 will be recorded to 4. These icons will show you the actual effects. You have a compressor that looks like that. And then we have an EQ that looks like that, which is the icon right here. Turns that one on and off. Now that's the EQ plugin, and you have the exact same settings there. You have simple mode, and then you press the little arrow down, and that will turn it into advanced mode instead. Amp Simulator works a little bit simpler. All you do is just select which amp you want to use, and it switches over there, and then you can just add a little bit of EQ in the drive, and it's very straightforward. And the Amp Simulator, the compressor and EQ are all writable, so when you're running your vocal or your guitar or whatever it might be into your sequencer, it will write that effect. The reverb, though, is only used on input just for monitoring. you will add that reverb right there, and you see these boxes pop up. You have 1 and 2, so I will of course go on 1 or 2. And you will add those individually into your headphone mixes, which looks like that. These 5 boxes right here are all of your input mixes, and then these are all of your output mixes. You will see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that is SPDIF. So that's how all of the mixes work. This little box right there, if you click on that one, this little custom mix window opens up, and that's how you set up a custom mix for all of your inputs. Same goes for output mix. Click that little circle right there, and that will open up the output mix. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can assign any of these output mixes to be controlled by the hardware monitor knob on the front side. So you just need to enable the H button on whichever output you want to control. If it's grayed out, you can only control it with the mouse. So now if I turn the monitor knob here, you'll see that it's actually turning whichever output mix has the H button enabled. Besides that, you can save any of these settings. For example, if you work with several different bands and you have a specific setting that works really well, you can save this as a session, maybe name it whatever the band is, and you can load it up easily. And sound card mode will switch the input fader to playback instead of being an input, and then you have track mode, which will set it in the center so you can hear both input and playback. Shrink will shrink the actual GUI so it doesn't take up that much space on your screen. And of course you expand it there. You can also set it to float. When you set it to float, now if you're switching in between windows, it will not take it away. It will always be there floating over your arranger window, for example. That's your sample rate window right there, and that's how you can switch sample rates. The Saffire records 24-bit up to 192 kilohertz. So you can set the sample rate right there. And I believe that that is everything about the Saffire. Saffire also comes bundled with Cubase LE. So Saffire is really for any type of person, whether you just starting out, then you have Cubase to work with right away. But if you're a professional engineer, you might want to have a good sound card on the road. It's great, it's bus powered, you can plug it into a laptop and have really nice Focusrite preamps and converters, and you're ready to go.